Yeah, but Gary, look who he's going up against. You talk about a classic battle. No love lost. White truck, Chevrolet. Blue truck is Ford. Andy Brass going against Steve Wilkie. The old-time rivalry stays alive in Memphis. Ford versus Chevrolet. Let's kick back and just watch this one.
Steve Wilkie in the white USA 1, the blue Bigfoot. Oh, Andy Brass gets the hole shot.
Boy, Brass drilled him on the starting line. Wilkie trying to pull back.
Wilkie was never in this event. Once that Christmas tree went green, Brass was gone.
Oh, Gary, you're exactly right. When that light turned green, that big blue Ford ready to ride after the USA 1 Chevrolet. Everett Jasper onto the truck trying to figure it out. I think what happened here was Steve Wilkie just flat made Andy Brass mad, told him he's going to beat him off the start line, and Brass no way was going to concede to that.
Yeah, Wilkie may have some explaining to do. Let's eavesdrop on the conversation with owner and driver.
I feel bad. But again, I didn't see him. I didn't see him until he was here. Yeah. So I must have been right with him, you know.
Well, obviously, Steve didn't see the same race that we saw because he was not right with him. Bigfoot takes the victory, and here is your winner, Andy Brass with Army Armstrong.
Well, Gary, in any motorsport, mind games is a part of it. Andy, I understand he came up to you before you ran, said he's going to drill you on the starting line. You didn't let that happen.
That's right. You know, in a lot of this game here, there's going to be a lot of real close racing, so you got to play the light real good. You know, I hit the light right. You know, I'm pretty sure, you know, I was almost positive in my mind that we pulled a green light. You know, they thought we red lighted, but I was almost positive it was green, and it was. So that's all it took, you know. And like I say, it's the light. I think it's going to make a lot of racing.
Driver to mechanic, and here's the guy that drives him, works on him, Andy Brass in Bigfoot 8 out of St. Louis, Missouri. Along with Gary Porter, the Carolina Crusher. These guys have faced each other many times before.
You know, that's so very true, but every time they go to the starting line, they put the war paint on. The friendship goes out the window. It's the first one to the other end. The 681 is quick time. Brass drills the left lane, comes out going hard. Look at this run, Gary. Again.
Oh, Andy Brass, he almost goes out of bounds, just barely keeps it in. Let's check the time. Look at that.
Hey, Gary, check these numbers. A 643 out of the left lane, but a lot of damage to be done to the vehicles. Everybody's landing cockeyed to the left. Replay's going to show us right now.
Coming right at you, watch Andy Brass and Bigfoot land hard on the left side tires. That Bigfoot may have stubbed a toe on that one as they look at some possible damage. Let's talk to Andy Brass.
Every time you and Porter go together, it's like an old-time street fight. There's no difference right there.
That's right. You know, Gary's been running strong. He's built one of the new trucks. It's been running real good, and we just had to stay with it, you know. And like I said, I got knocked out of qualifying a little earlier, so I'm trying to get used to the track now, and I'm just playing as hard as I can.
Classic battle of Chevrolet going against Ford. Taurus going against Bigfoot.
Well, this Taurus is injured. The question is, will he actually make an attempt or just present himself to get second place points? It's Bigfoot with Andy Brass, Jack Willman Jr., and yes, he just makes an appearance for second place, prize money and points, and Bigfoot will take the victory. No competition there.
No, Andy Brass definitely, you know, he went ahead and made a run out of it. The rumor mill was saying Taurus is not going to run hard, but you don't roll over. You don't let anybody walk into the next round. These guys did exactly what they had to do. They gave it their best shot. It was not to be their day, but his truck won.
Well, young driver in the making right there. Let's talk to our victor, Andy Brass.
Okay, Andy, when you went to the final, did you think he was going to run you out the back door?
Well, we knew he was going to run. You know, I tried to look at it, take a good look at his truck when he was backing up to the line to see if it, you know, if it was still broke. You know, it was leaning a little bit to the driver's side, it looked like, so I figured he busted one of his shocks and he wouldn't run that hard. So we just kind of got him off the line and didn't hear him coming, so we just kind of took it easy.
Congratulations to Andy Brass as we take a look at father and son. They'll USA 1, and he goes against the Ford. Bigfoot with Andy Brass. Round one competition, and it won't get any better than this shootout right here.
For years, everybody's had a favorite. If you like Chevrolet, you pull for the white truck. If you like Ford, you pull for the blue truck. This race could be worth the price of admission. Everything's going to go down right now. What happened? Brass drills him on the line. Wilkie's going to pull back. Brass is not going to let him.
There is nobody off the line any better than Andy Brass. He cuts the best light of anybody here this weekend.
It's amazing how quick that 13,000-pound truck reacts to that young man.
Look again, the competition is over right there as they go over that first set of cars.
He lands after the first jump, the truck settles, it goes straight, and he drives it literally out the back door, Gary.
Everybody's scratching their head, including Fred Schaefer there. Let's talk to Andy Brass.
Andy, you're going to be going against Scott Stevens next round.
Yeah, it is. I was kind of watching Scott run a little bit. I see he took the other lane. We're taking the left lane here today. I see some guys having some problems over here, so we figured, well, we're going to try because it's going to be a lane that everybody ends up in. And I think I might just go ahead and throw Scott in the right. The right lane does look a little worse than the left, so we're just going to kind of play it easy and throw a little lane change
And
today
that
on these guys.
bright yellow hat working under the race truck. And here is Scott Stevens in the Auto Value King Crunch. And his competition will be Andy Brass in Bigfoot 8.
Well, Gary, as we've traveled all over the country, anybody that follows this sport knows these guys have gone tooth and nail after each other. Well, what's more appropriate in Memphis than, as we've said it before, the Battle of the Blues? Who's going to win it, Ford or Chevrolet?
Well, it looks like Andy Brass in the Ford right now has the measure, and he'll take the victory. Oh, that is a combination of equipment and driver.
Yeah, there's a rhythm set up there. Andy Brass has just got a seat of the pants feel for driving that monster truck.
The time right there is 7.57. 7.57. That will be the quickest time thus far.
Hey,
so
but look who's coming back in, Gary.
Yeah,
the
the Crusher's
Carolina
back.
Crusher, yeah.
And listen to the fans. They love it. They can certainly appreciate the work that was done to get that one back in competition. On the replay, look at Scott Stevens. He was in trouble before he ever got to that first jump. And the measure of victory going to Andy Brass in Bigfoot. But watch as we continue on. Scott Stevens almost runs out of runoff space. The shutdown area almost not long enough. He almost collects that guardrail. Let's go down and talk to Andy Brass.
Let me ask you a real quick question. What do you think about this Chevrolet Barefoot not getting past this route? He's upset. Says there's a malfunction in the electrical system. No problem to him whatsoever. He's ready to go racing, but there's a problem somewhere.
Yeah, he is. You know, a lot of the guys are all ready and they're hyped to go racing and stuff. Fred runs one of the newer Linko transmissions, you know, and to me that's what it looked like having me come off the line. His Linko just went into neutral. If it would have been an electrical problem, I think his truck would have died and still stayed running.
Andy makes an interesting point. Once you hit that kill switch, you can't restart the truck until you reset both the truck and the kill box itself.
Could be the Cinderella story. We know Andy Brass has been here before, but this kid coming out, like we say, let Wayne do it. Well, Wayne's doing a pretty good job today to be a new driver in this truck.
But there's nothing like experience in the cockpit, and this young man right here from St. Louis, Andy Brass, has the equipment, he has the experience, and he has the talent. It would be a tall order for Nightlife to beat Bigfoot in this one.
We're going to find out real quick.
It's all over right there.
Whoa, wait a minute. Look here. Okay, Brass comes back. Boy, he's just got a natural feel for that truck. It's amazing that you actually have something called finesse with a 13,000-pound truck. But you look at it, Gary, how he smooths it back in right there.
Andy Brass could conduct a driving clinic with Bigfoot 8, whereas Bigfoot defeated USA 1, King Crunch, and Nightlife. And there's a look at Bigfoot 8.
There's an old saying in motorsports, Gary Lee, and you know it as well as I do. The difference between men and boys is the price of the toys. And ironically, the two biggest toy manufacturers in the country are sponsoring each of the competitors. The Tonka toy, it'll be on the side of the Taurus truck. The Mattel Hot Wheel, it goes to the side of Bigfoot. The classic Chevrolet, Ford, new driver, manufacturers, everything for a Hollywood motion picture script is going to be on the line right here. This could be the best monster truck race ever. Side by side at half track, Gary Lee.
It's still side by side, almost a photo finish.
I can't call
Who won it? I can't tell. Who won that thing?
That could be. We could have just seen the best monster truck race ever. Side by side, neither kid would blink. Nobody wanted to back off on the other guy. What a race here in Memphis.
You have to be impressed, Army, with this youngster, Jack Willman Jr. He went up against the most formidable of foes in Bigfoot, and he may have beaten him. Let's watch right here. Oh, it looks like, I won't call it.
We're going to let the track crew tell us who won that. I don't know. I've seen a lot. I've been around a lot. That's the best I've ever seen, Gary Lee.
Well, who are they going to give it to? Watch this. Let's watch from this angle as Jack Willman Sr. takes a look, and I can't tell from that angle.
Oh, that's the
He
first
seems
time.
to think that perhaps his son has won. As we take a look one more time, Army, see if you can't get those two drivers together to get their comments, as once again it is too close from our vantage point to call.
Okay, the word we get, Gary, coming over the headset, winner goes to the Chevrolet by 0.4 of a second. Congratulations to you.
Yeah, it was a tough run, you know, Bigfoot 8, you know, it's the toughest truck Bigfoot's got, and it's tough to beat.
Let me bounce over here to Andy. Andy, congratulations on that. Was super. I've played this game a long time, gentlemen. That had to be the best monster truck race I've ever seen.
Yeah, that was a real close race, probably the hardest one I've had to run. Taurus's new truck it's hard to beat, and I knew we was going to have to pull a good light on him to get him, and all the way down through there it was close, and I knew it was going to be close at the end.
Well, one of the questions we had at the beginning of the show, have the new technology trucks arrived? I think the answer is yes, because they were both in the final today. Gary?
Let's take a ride with Jack Willman Jr. in perhaps the best monster cars, and Steve Hess in Nightmare.
Hess is going to represent the GMC brand. Bigfoot, he's going to be representing the Ford people. We wait for the first lineup. Two different theories of trucks. Bigfoot, the latest state-of-the-art truck. Nightmare in the far lane of Hess. He's running with the old-style truck, and I think this first race is going to show you there is a difference in the design of the trucks, Gary.
Andy Brass, the fast qualifier, has lane selection. He has taken that right lane, gets the good jump. This one's over.
Boy, it was over. It never really had a chance to get started. Gary, keep an eye on that last 100 feet. The drivers are just a rumbling in the pit area about that extra 100 feet. They just flat do not like it, and they really don't like the lane that Hess is in. We're going to keep an eye on that lane later on today, because they say that's going to pay dividends in the accident department.
Army, the problem child in the left lane is a dip in the final 100 feet that really tosses. How it happened and when it happened. As we look now at Bigfoot and Snakebite, you said earlier, Snakebite wanted to beat Bigfoot. Here is the chance.
Word on the street is the only reason they even built Snakebite was to beat the blue truck. That's where the mystique comes into this thing.
Well, is he going to know? There's a problem. Snakebite was just defanged by Bigfoot.
Bigfoot cleared both jumps completely. He didn't touch a car from the time he left the starting line to the finish line, and he went straight, and he did it, Gary, out of the right lane. Watch the replay come up. Clears the first jump, settles down, launches, clears the second jump, and drives straight as an arrow.
Didn't hit nobody, didn't hurt
But the big story.
Well, now we take a look at Andy Brass in Bigfoot 8, and once again, Snakebite will have his shot. Colt Cobra. Well, you saw what happened the last time. What do you think, Army?
I think the start line is going to tell the story. Cobra is going to try to drill Andy Brass the starting line.
Yeah, he will need the whole shot if he has any chance at all at besting Andy Brass.
And he's going to have to drive it out the back door, too, but the Snakebite vehicle's in what they've been saying is a bad lane. Let's see. First jump about even, Gary.
Yeah, but it's all Andy Brass now over the second set of cars. How you going to beat Bigfoot 8?
Boy, it's like he's on rails. He's clearing everything. He's going straight and smooth. It's got to be the odds-on favorite going into the final.
496 cubic inches of Ford horsepower. And right here, it's close, but then he gets on the throttle through the middle section of the course, and it's all Bigfoot. And here's Andy Brass.
Andy, you've been here before. You've done this before. You and Gary.
It is, you know, I've run Gary a lot, and he's been real hard, so we're not going to do anything really a whole lot different. We've been running pretty consistent all day. I have to go back and look at my times. I think we should have fast times, so we should have lane choice. So I'm not going to try to change anything. I'm just going to run up against him. He's a hard runner, and the big thing here is just going to be consistency.
It will be.
This is Gary.
Well, the Carolina Crusher, Gary Porter, he is ready. There's a look at Andy Brass out of St. Louis, Missouri in Bigfoot. It's the big blue Ford against the bright red and yellow Chevrolet in the championship here at Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania.
Both truck of the high-tech nature. Should be a good run. Going to be a driver's race, but the classic battle comes back. The American flag on the Chevrolet going against the Mattel flag on the Ford. Chevrolet Ford battle, Pennsylvania 4x4 Jamboree. The man himself, Bob Chandler's taking a picture of this one. He knows it's going to be a great race. Gary, you take the call.
Remember, Andy Brass, as the fast qualifier, has lane choice. He has taken the right lane each time out. That seems to be the best and the smoothest lane. It's going to be Bigfoot. Bigfoot has the advantage, yes. Andy Brass takes the victory here in Pennsylvania. An appreciative crowd on hand as Brass turns back the challenge of Gary Porter. Let's look once again.
On every run today, Gary, he cleared every obstacle. Every car was completely clear.
And he takes the victory by a truck length over Gary Porter as he climbs out of the Crusher. Here's our victor.
Andy, this had to be one of the most spectacular monster truck races I've ever been involved in.
Yes, it has. This was real close. When I was kind of concerned when I got down there, I didn't see Gary, but when I was making a turn, I seen he was ahead of me, so I knew it was going to be close. I looked at Gary's times before we run, and I was only running like 25 hundredths of a second ahead of him, so I knew we was going to get down at the end. It was going to be a close race, and we'd have to stay in it.
Our congratulations to Andy Brass and Bigfoot. For Army Armstrong, I'm Gary Lee. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week on Trucks and Tractor Power. Above and Beyond and the Carolina Crusher against Micro Machine as we look at work under the two-frame Bigfoot 8.
Now, the qualifying session was interesting. Earlier today, we talked about the Nightlife vehicle. Bigfoot had some problems. We had a throttle stick on Scott Stevens' vehicle. So these guys are really laying down the law, trying to get good qualifying shots in today here at Bloomsburg.
Bigfoot looks like he's lost a drive shaft there in qualifying as they continue to work on Bigfoot 8.
And then the rear end actually broke on it and it crabbed over to the side or
Is
walked
Bigfoot
sideways.
Andy Brass, Bigfoot 8 out of St. Louis, Missouri. He is the fastest qualifier. He goes up against John Moore in no problem. A pair of Fords, a pickup, and a Bronco.
Both of them running 460 cubic inch supercharged engine. The Bigfoot team relies on the blower drive service out of California to help make their horsepower.
This will be a big challenge for John Moore, but he's going to run him tough. A lot of smoke from that short wheelbase Bronco. Andy Brass takes the victory. It was a good ride, though, for John Moore. And there is Bob Chandler, the man behind the Bigfoot stable. We look once again, and the Army will have you walk over and see if you can't corral John Moore after we take a look at the replay. And there is the margin of victory for Andy Brass in Bigfoot, flailing about on the left side. But here he is in round 2, Wayne against Andy.
Brass runs hard right lane. Wayne using his head, Gary.
Well, you heard him say earlier he was concerned about running that truck hard, perhaps getting upside down again with that weakened cage. So Andy Brass will advance in Bigfoot 8.
You got to remember, we just talked a moment ago about lane choice. Lane choice is determined by the quick ET. So Andy Brass still had to run hard in order to try to protect that lane for the next round.
Pennsylvania, well, and they're cheering for this guy right here. Andy Brass in Bigfoot 8 out of St. Louis, Missouri. And look who he's going up against. Barefoot Fred Schaefer, the last truck, the 13th truck to arrive today. And he has a shot at the finals.
The bottom of the Barefoot sign on the truck has said racer, and that's exactly what Fred Schaefer is. He came in here, he's going to run whoever he has to run. And I'm going to be upfront about this thing. Fred Schaefer does not like the Bigfoot guys one bit.
Schaefer has the advantage headed to the second set of cars. Look at this. The Chevrolet takes the win over the Ford of Bigfoot. Well, the Chevy fans are happy as Barefoot Fred Schaefer beats out the Bigfoot 8 of Andy Brass.
Watch how soft Barefoot lands. Not a lot of bounce. Look at this. He absorbs the impact. That's why the truck goes so quick.
And look what lane he was in. The right lane, Bigfoot the left lane. Here's the winner with Army.
This is
The fans in Eastern Ohio are ready for monster truck competition here at the Canfield Fairgrounds. We have a 12-truck format. Unfortunately, the fans of one particular truck are disappointed. A Ford front loader is towing the Ford Bigfoot. Army, it is out of competition.
Gary, in the qualifying session, they suffered some major damage. The crew walking around, they said they're just not going to make the call.
Up against. Good luck to you.
Here are the
Sure
pairings.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Next matchup, there he is, Andy Brass in Bigfoot 8. Perhaps a surprise that he was not the fast qualifier this evening. He was third quick on the grid. He's out of St. Louis, Missouri, and that Bob Chandler, Bigfoot 8, the two-frame truck. And he goes up against the pink Clydesdale. This is Bennett Clark. Clark, the guy with the black hat and the handlebar mustache out of Georgia.
Bennett Clark used to be a bull rider on a rodeo circuit, so bucking a bronc is not new to him, but he is in a
natural
lane.
transition.
Yeah, he's in a lane that, remember a moment ago, Steve Hess took a strange bounce to far lane. Let's see what happens to Bennett Clark over there. Oh, okay.
Well, he does a wheel stand through no man's land, and there's no contest because Bigfoot 8 picks up the victory. He will advance, and Bennett Clark will head back to that trailer for a long haul back to Georgia.
Looked like Bennett Clark was having a fueling problem with the engine. You notice the flames coming out, but what I was looking for was a common denominator in the far lane. Watch the way they go up the first ramp. The way they come off of that ramp is getting them in trouble. Happened to Hess and it happened to Clark.
Well, you're speaking of an old suspension versus a new suspension.
You're exactly
with
right.
Bigfoot.
But the finish line is the same distance away for both of them, though.
I mean, it's Gary. Here's a look at Wayne, Carolina Crusher, and there is Mr. Ford. Bigfoot, Andy Brass, Bigfoot 8. Well, Andy obviously has the advantage right now because he's in that near lane.
Yeah, but don't tell Gary Porter that. Chevrolet people believe Porter can pull it off. If anybody can out of the left lane, it might be Gary. Okay, now he clears the first jump.
But look at the horsepower.
Whoa.
Look at the horsepower that Bob Chandler truck developed. It was all Gary Porter through the first half of the run and all Andy Brass through the second half. And watch this again. A good light for Gary Porter.
Yeah,
Look at this.
Yeah, he clears the first car, settles down good, decent bounce, but Andy Brass literally flies past him in midair.
A textbook run, and here is Andy Brass.
Well, Gary, the action keeps going. We got a guy that is going to the next round. Andy, how do you feel about this thing? All the bad boys made it past the last stop.
Yeah, that's right. I've been kind of watching the bracket sheet, so it looks like we're going in the left lane. It's not a lane of my choice, but it's something we're going to have to run. We're going to run it hard, push Jack hard in his truck, and hopefully maybe we can make him mess up.
Well, once again, as we take a look at both lanes, we're not really sure what the problem is with the left lane, but obviously you can tell the drivers do not want that lane. Here's a look at our semifinal action with Taurus going up against Bigfoot 8, the Carolina Crusher, and King Crunch will then be in the next pairing.
You know, Gary, it's kind of interesting. A lot of drivers will not tell you if there's a weak point any place in the competition. Andy Brass concedes that left place is not the place to be.
Well, here's a look at Jack Woolman Sr. in the truck that he owns. This is Taurus. They're out of Granite City, Illinois, just across the river from St. Louis. Now, he's driven this. His son has driven this. There's your red light again, indicating that everything is go with the electrical system. He also has his nephew, Eldon Depew, on occasion in the cockpit. And there's a look at Bigfoot 8, Andy Brass out of St. Louis, Missouri. So these guys are neighbors in the Midwest.
They're neighbors, and they're brothers in making this sport go. For the Chevrolet camp, Taurus is represented well. Of course, everybody knows about Ford's involvement with Bigfoot, but these guys have been instrumental in taking the sport forward. We keep talking about the red lights and the safety equipment. This sport is going, it's growing. The MTRA, the national organization, are setting the standards and the rules, and that's why we're seeing good racing. Speaking of good racing, Gary,
it's going to be the left lane. Yes!
First win of the night.
Andy Brass talked about the problem with the left lane. He put his foot down, and here's an example of truck, chassis, engine, and driver working together. Watch this truck settle down right here, and he's right back on the throttle. No jumping about. He clears the entire second row of cars, and he takes the victory. And here's Andy. Andy going to the championship round in Canfield.
Well, Gary, we know who one of the finalists is going to be. Andy Brass is going to be you, but these two Chevrolet boys want to get a piece of you in the worst way.
Yeah, that's right. You know, we just kind of counted last round on the truck running good, and thanks to guys like BDS and MSD and them, the Ford was running real well. And so I'm thinking we should have fast time in the lane, so we're going to pull lane choice, go into the right lane, and throw whoever ends up in the finals with us, we're going to put them in the left and see if they can do it.
Okay, good luck to you, bud.
Thank you.
All right, Andy Brass, Bigfoot will be in our championship
Gary,
go
we go.
here.
It's final time, and I tell you what we're going to be seeing. We're going to see the classic battle of Ford versus Chevrolet Bigfoot going against Carolina Crusher, but we're going to be seeing something else. I think you're going to be seeing two of the most gentlemanly drivers in the sport. Andy Brass knows the Chevrolet is having problems. Andy Brass has been in that situation before. Don't look for any games. Look for a heads-up straight race, and they're going to start those trucks, I believe, go to the starting line and race to the other end. Two gentlemen. Let's see which one's going to come out on top tonight.
All right, there's a look at Gary Porter's Carolina Crusher with the oil pickup problem. And he goes up against Bigfoot 8. This is Andy Brass. So we have North Carolina against Missouri.
Well, Gary, this is exactly what I thought would happen. Andy Brass let Gary start his truck, go to the line. He immediately goes into the line with him. They're here to race. They're not here to play games.
Well, they also are considering the good of the entire sport, and not just this one championship run here in Canfield.
Oh, we got a race. Check it out, Gary.
Look at this. Look at the Crusher. And here comes Foot. Bigfoot has so much horsepower. Once that pickup truck settles down in no man's land, we have seen it time and time and time again. The Crusher had him. Gary Porter had him.
They look like fighter pilots dogfighting each other in no man's land. Look at this. Boy, they are heads up.
But watch, Gary Porter has the measure of Foot right here, and here comes Andy Brass. It's all horsepower.
Exactly.
And there's the margin of victory, and here's Andy Brass.
Andy, when you go up against that guy, it's a lot of teamwork that people are not even aware of, isn't it?
That's right. You know, thanks to guys, our crew members and stuff back there, has given a lot of help. We had a little problems with the truck earlier today, but we got it pretty well ironed out. I was watching Gary all day. His times was running about the same. We was running a little bit faster on time. I knew Gary was going to pull a good light, and we just had to not worry about it and just try to play. If we did get behind, play catch up in the middle, and that's what we did.
And just a moment ago, I told you you're going to see a race between two gentlemen. That's exactly what I mean.
There is Andy Brass, Bigfoot 8 out of St. Louis, Missouri, and he, as the fast qualifier, will take on his old nemesis out of Colorado. There is Colt Cobra in Snakebite.
Gary, everybody that knows the story knows that the only reason Colt Cobra became involved in monster truck racing was to beat Bigfoot. In order to beat Bigfoot, you got to qualify hard. This is the qualifying shot earlier this afternoon. Check it out.
He's headed right for the TV compound. Watch the people scatter over there. I don't know what it is. We must have a magnet over in that television compound. We attract these monster trucks.
Called a monster magnet. Here,
have to be.
You hold it. I'm going to the other end.
A problem
an
with
upset.
Bigfoot. A problem with Andy Brass, and Snake Bite will advance to round 2.
Boy,
Snake Bite will advance, but look at Andy Brass.
You don't see that very often. Colt Cobra has got to be tickled to death. He's been bragging about beating that blue truck forever. No matter what.
But it took a mechanical problem to beat him, though.
That doesn't count. You win, you win. You lose, you lose. He won.
And there is the hex of Snake Bite as Bigfoot towed away. Here's Andy Brass.
Well, Andy, I know you're not a superstitious driver. This guy said he put a hex on you. You didn't make it over the first jump. What happened?
Well, the best thing we can figure out is we lost oil pressure, so I figured my pump locked up, and we sheared the distributor off because we don't have any fire in the motor at all. So that's the best thing I can figure right now.
We take a look at Bigfoot Andy Brass showing off his brand new haircut. Bigfoot 8 out of St. Louis, Missouri. He is the second fastest qualifier. There is a look at Scott Stevens out of Texas in the auto value.
I noticed that Scott Stevens picked up the new Simpson hat as his crew chief goes to check out the top end of the truck. They've got a problem. The truck completely shut off. I brought a mention about the new Simpson safety equipment because Stevens has been on his head so much this year. He's a testimonial for the safety equipment people in this sport. If they weren't building good stuff, he'd have been hurt by now.
I had a chance to visit with him recently at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. He and his young son were there for a visit. He said, I'm tired of getting upside down. We have to turn this season around. Excuse the pun.
Play on words. What it is, they've got there's a little screw is the word we're getting. There was something right there. Tracy Smart holding it. This could almost be a case of sabotage. There was a wood screw. Now, why would you have a wood screw around any kind of a racing vehicle that was hung in the injection throttle there?
Are you trying to imply something, Army?
I'll say this, that there's no reason in the world a wood screw should ever be around any kind of racing vehicle like this.
Well, apparently the problem has been resolved. And this will be the final shootout in round 1.
Whoa!
What
Hole
a
shot!
great hole shot for but look at the horsepower of the big Ford as Bigfoot outpowers King Crunch for the victory.
He literally had to catch him in the air. Yeah, but they're okay. They didn't tear the truck up. They entered on all fours. So psychologically, King Crunch and Scott Stevens will come out a winner. But Andy Brass literally flies to the wind, passes him in midair, Gary.
Senior as junior walks away, and now we look at the pairing between Ford and Chevrolet. Bigfoot, Andy Brass out of St. Louis, Missouri. That is Bigfoot 8, the two-frame truck. And there is Tropical Thunder, Wayne Smozanik from Jupiter, Florida.
New style in the far lane, old truck in the near lane.
New truck wins it.
Simple as that. That's short and sweet.
Andy Brass, the second fastest qualifier here in Wisconsin this afternoon, takes the victory. He'll move on to the semis. We look again as the Ford outpowers the Chevrolet. Well, the action will continue from Union Grove, Wisconsin on Trucks and Tractor Power. Stay with us. More coming up next. Walks away. He realizes he has been defeated as we take a look now at Bigfoot, Andy Brass, and Micro Machine. John Breen, Ford against Chevrolet.
Something that's still happening. They've changed the track and everything, but Gary, everybody that has lane choice is still going to the right side of this track. Nobody wants to come to the left. And if Bigfoot goes against Schaefer, who's going to get to go into the right lane in the next round? That could be the question of the day.
Well, it looks now with Bigfoot winning this one with Andy Brass that our fastest two qualifiers will be matched up for the championship. And these jamborees are more than just great monster truck racing. For more information on these trucking events, call or write the Special Events Company in Indianapolis. A look at Bob Chandler without his customary black cowboy hat. We're ready for the championship shootout. Army, some thoughts from you.
Hey, Gary, remember when you were a kid and you kind of ran into the neighborhood bully? He says, you hit me, and you said, no, you hit me first, no, you hit me first. That is not the case today. I guarantee you, somebody, when that light goes green, is going to punch the other guy as quick as they can. Like an old-time gunfight, somebody's going to sucker punch the other one. They shortened the track. Drivers have made adjustments. You got one Ford, one Chevrolet, and there's another player here. Fred Schaefer has never won on this circuit. It's the third time that he's run here. He's been a world champion before, but he's never beaten these guys. This could be the day. But in order to do it, he's got to get past Bigfoot. They're going to the line right now. Let's see who's going to win this classic Ford and Chevrolet battle.
Well, Army, as we take a look at Fred Schaefer, we have the ideal situation in bracket racing. We have the fastest two qualifiers going side by side for the championship. Bigfoot, that is Bigfoot 8, the frame tube truck out of St. Louis, Missouri, and he goes up against the Chevrolet of Barefoot. Barefoot, the fast qualifier. Andy Brass, the second fast qualifier.
Horsepower is going to win it, Gary. That's what it all narrows down to. Boy, Schaefer is out. Look at that. Schaefer takes his first win.
Schaefer wins it. They were side by side, fender to fender, coming off the line, but as you indicated, horsepower will win here this afternoon. Horsepower did win.
Watch the front wheels on Schaefer. He has got the feet out of the water and walking a dog as he hits that first ramp.
And there you can see the length of the victory for Fred Schaefer as Andy Brass will take Bigfoot back to the trailer. And let's go down and talk to our winner. St. Louis, Missouri, out of 12 trucks, he once again is the fastest qualifier. And in round one, he takes on Micro Machine, John Breen.
Now, by virtue of his quick qualifying time, Andy Brass is going to have lane choice as we look in at some of the safety equipment that these drivers are wearing, displayed by John Breen. But Brass goes to the right side, and I can't figure out how they determine the good lane from the bad lane just by looking at them.
Well, he has it figured out because look at that advantage at the finish line, but he won it with his hole shot. The fans showed their appreciation. Now watch once again, watch the weight transfer. The front end elevates as Andy Brass nails the hammer, and he has a one right there. A lot of hang time, a lot of air time. Let's talk to our winner, Andy Brass.
Well, Gary, we got the first winner of the day with us. Andy Brass, tell us about the track.
Well, the track's a little different from what it was when we qualified. It's a lot wetter now, which means we're going to have to probably pull a gear change on it. Last night we qualified, we took and run hard. We were spinning the wheels on the line. Now we're getting a little more traction, so we're going to have to drop down a little bit.
Take a look at Andy Brass and Bigfoot 8, the two-frame racing truck against David Morris in Equalizer.
Gary, the last time these trucks met was for a national championship 2 years ago. After that, the Morris team split up. He and Gary Cook kind of went different directions. Andy Brass stayed with Bob Chandler, but now maybe the winning combination for the Equalizer is coming back together.
Well, Andy Brass gets the hole shot, and David Morris really made up some ground through the air, but the Bigfoot Ford will advance.
Well, David Morris, a little bit late off the starting line. I can understand that. He's been out of the driver's seat for a while, but one of the patented moves by the Equalizer team is the top-end charge. Look at that. He almost flew past him.
Well, he pulled that trigger as he went over that second set of cars, and he almost got him, but Bigfoot will advance. Here's against Taurus, and the Carolina Crusher, the fast loser from the second round, going up against Fred Schaefer in Barefoot. And here is the youngster from Granite City, Jack Willman Jr. in Taurus. I tell you what, it may be tough to decide who's the better of the drivers, dad or son in this. And here's Andy Brass from St. Louis in Bigfoot 8. Ford against Chevrolet.
Each of these runs we're going to see in this round would be worth the price of admission, believe me. Gary, just like you noted, both of these drivers are sharp. The driver that stays the coolest is going to win. We got a major problem
down there with Bigfoot, and now a problem with Taurus.
Taurus has blown the bottom end of the transmission or the drive shaft, but Bigfoot's still running. Andy Brass notices Taurus is out of the running. He's lost a throttle linkage, I believe. He reached out with his right hand and is driving across, trying to get to the final round.
This may be the slowest semifinal ever in monster truck racing, but Bigfoot will advance. Now he finds the fire, and he will advance to the championship.
Slowest race of the day between two of the fastest monster trucks in the sport.
Something happens to Andy Brass right at the start, and now something happens to the Taurus truck of Jack Willman Jr. as he hits the ramp for the first set of cars. Andy looks over, sees there's a problem. He gets Bigfoot going, and he creeps across the finish. Army Armstrong, truck owner, you never like to see this Taurus out of competition. Let's go back down and talk to Andy Brass.
Boy, Andy, when it's your day, it's your day. A little right-hand throttle driving, but whatever it takes to win, huh?
That's right. You know, I'd come off the line as soon as we hit it. We lost everything, and I seen Jack take off, and then all of a sudden he stopped, and I sat and kind of figured the situation out and figured out what was wrong with the truck, and I knew all we had to do was just get across the end of the finish line, and we'd have it. It was bad luck for Jack, bad luck for us, but it ended up and worked out, and we made it into the finals, and I guess that's all it takes.
We'll see you in that final.
All right.
I tell you what, Gary, when it's going your way, it's going your way. See what I mean?
safe at home. Andy Brass almost a little grass stain on the driving suit. Well, you're ready for the championship shootout here. It's Ford against Chevrolet as we go back trackside in Army Armstrong. Your thoughts?
Gary, a lot of times we come back to the people, we tell them they're going to see a war, and in monster truck racing, that's a fact. These guys are going after each other. There's no love lost between a couple of different teams. Fred Schaefer and Bob Chandler are strong competitors. A lot of respect there, but there's still no love lost. There's one difference. One drives a Ford, one drives a Chevrolet. The only common denominator, each one wants to drill the other guy to the wall. It's that time. Let's see who's going to walk out of here the winner.
And there is a look at Fred Schaefer. The open face helmet. He drives the Chevrolet barefoot alongside Andy Brass in Bigfoot 8.
Gary Lee, you know what they're calling this down on the trackside? They're calling it a Dr. Scholl's final. You got to have a foot to get in this one.
Oh, that is terrible. Oh, but look at the battle, though. What a great championship run. And it was barefoot. But look again, Army. Watch him pull the foot out of the water. Look at the hang time, but the best foot forward belongs to Fred Schaefer.
Fred, I tell you,
Dodge, Ford, Chevrolet, GMC, they're all here. And the people that sit in these grandstands are used to seeing some good racing, as you noted a moment ago, with the open wheel racing that normally comes here. But we're on the infield now. We're going about 350 feet. Time to show and tell, isn't it, Gary Lee?
A new truck here against an old truck giant. That is Kirk Dabney, now calls Fort Wayne, Indiana home, originally out of Fayetteville, North Carolina. He goes up against the St. Louis-based Bigfoot and Andy Brass, and it's all Bigfoot.
Yeah, real quick, suspension is the name of the game. Dabney had his hands full, wanted a high side and what have you. Meanwhile, Bigfoot goes out in the right lane and just literally airs it out, absorbs the energy. He's got to be a happy camper.
Well, here is a look at the new technology, the tube frame truck. Now watch the suspension work on Bigfoot, and you can see Giant hop up in the back, and that's the major difference right there. As Bigfoot takes the victory, Andy Brass is down with Army.
Andy, there's got to be a good and a bad track, but when you draw number one, how do you make that determination?
Well, that's just what's hard to do. You know, we was trying to watch a track in qualifying and then pick a lane on the first run here. We picked the lane we qualified in. We're just going to sit back now and kind of watch it. We hope we run fast enough this round to give us lane choice in the next round. Like I say, we'll just sit back, watch the lanes, and see how they work.
So as Andy Brass walks back to the paddock
right
area.
There's about a 3-inch indentation in the track where they're actually digging holes. So right now what I'm saying is both of these trucks are sitting down in a little valley. The first move is an up move. Boy, Brass.
Up. Speaking of up,
Yeah.
look at the air and the hang time of Andy Brass and Bigfoot.
You know, Steve Hess is a player, man, and Brass just thumped him on the top end of this track. Look at the half-track lead that Foot has. Now, that's the difference in the new suspension on the left and the older suspension on the right there. Can't make it any clearer, Gary.
The newcomer, Eldon St. Louis,
Depew.
Missouri, Bigfoot number 8. The entire Bigfoot family, I think, is here this weekend in Indianapolis.
You know, that's an interesting point. They are. As part of this jamboree, the people bought a ticket. They not only get to see monster truck racing and custom truck displays, Bob Chandler brought all the Bigfoot trucks over, but this is the one they're all looking at right now, and he's got problems.
Oh,
and
yes.
Nick Rossi's going to the next round.
Nick Rossi, the outlaw, he has some trouble on his landing.
Well, any
Something
landing you
is
can
amiss
walk
in
away from
Bigfoot.
is a good landing, and that's proof of it right there. And Rossi, I tell you, what happened was front-wheel drive only. Watch the dirt get kicked up on the starting line. Rossi doesn't worry about it. He's driving his own race. He has no idea where Andy Brass is. He's got tunnel vision. He's looking at one thing, the finish line.
Well, Andy Brass climbs out of Bigfoot. There was a mechanical problem there, and he takes a look at the rear drive. You were right, they only had front-wheel drive. They're looking down there at the transfer case right now, so Bigfoot out of competition, but here's your winner, Nick Rossi. So once again, here's a look at Andy Brass in Bigfoot 8, the tube frame truck out of St. Louis, Missouri. And there is Eldon Depew, Granite City, Illinois. They're neighbors, and that is the Taurus truck owned by the Willman family. Eldon is Jack Willman Sr.'s nephew.
Yeah, you got to remember, though, so were the Hatfield and McCoys. They were neighbors, and they didn't get along very good. I think you can say the same thing here. Andy Brass comes out showing no mercy on his rookie driver.
And Brass takes the victory as Taurus noses over at the finish line.
We talk about Taurus having that snoopy nose. I guarantee you Depew got a real good look at that grass on the far end of the track.
Well, once again, the whole shot can be so important in this type of competition. And right there in no man's land, it's all Andy Brass.
Gary, I tell you what, this Depew kid is not afraid to drive that monster truck. He's going to be another attack driver.
Well, Bigfoot wins, but there may be a problem with the truck.
Well, Gary, we're standing on the starting line of the track with Bigfoot driver Andy Brass, but your whole crew's on the other end of the track trying to find something. What'd you lose?
Our steering went bad on us. We think down the other lane there, and we're just kind of watching it. And I think the power steering went away, so we're looking for the shaft, the intermediate shaft that drives the pump right now.
Okay, I'll look over the cameraman's shoulder. They just found that piece. We'll let you get back to the truck.
All right, thank you, Army.
So the crew and Andy are eager to get back and go to work on Bigfoot for round 2 competition as we take a... And there is a look at Andy Brass, Bigfoot 8. Of course, he is based in St. Louis, Missouri, only about a 4 or 5 hour drive from here in Indianapolis. And he'll go up against Eldon Depew of Granite City, Illinois in Taurus.
Jack Wellman, the owner of this truck, told Eldon, just go drive your race. Get time in the seat. These trucks ran against each other in the first round. The brake rule brings Taurus back in this thing. I wonder what's going through his mind right now. I don't think he's going to let Andy intimidate him at all. Oh, boy.
Andy got the whole shot. Oh, look how close it was, though. Andy had the whole shot, but Eldon stuck his foot to the floorboard and almost caught him. Andy may have won it, though.
That was amazing. This kid, you can see him on every run developing a car. He's left at the light. Okay, now from here on out, it's got to be horsepower. The truck settles, all 4 wheels bite. He launches it. I bet this kid for a hobby likes to tap dance in a minefield. That's the kind of mindset he has.
All right, who won it?
I don't know. We're still waiting.
That was a photo finish. I'm not sure that...
They're going into technical trailer to check it out, Gary.
Well, we rely on the videotape, but they'll be looking at what we just saw, and we can't tell. There's Andy Brass. Looking again.
One up, one down. Like 2 fighter pilots. One's trying to go up, the other one's trying to go down. Look at that. Nose up, nose down.
Well, the officials are now saying that it was Bigfoot that won by, what, the right front tire, perhaps?
They may say that, but that's not what I see. But what I see doesn't count, I guess.
So Andy Brass wins it, but I think we'll see this young man back in competition because the fast loser of this round will return. Let's talk to Andy Brass.
Andy, the word we're getting, the wind came in about 1 inch long.
That is, it was a close one. I went in the trailer because we have had several close calls out here, and I'm thinking sometimes we're getting a short end of the stick, so I want to make sure I went in and watched the video. Jack's going in now to watch it. From I watched, I think if we'd shaved the tires much more, we would have lost.
See you in the next round.
All right, thank you.
That's what the fans pay to see. They work on that pickup. And there is Bigfoot, Andy Brass out of St. Louis, Missouri, the Bigfoot 8 2-frame monster truck, and he goes up against a guy who loves the outside racetracks, Gary Porter, in the Big A Auto Parts Carolina Crusher. Ford against Chevrolet.
Boy, it's your classic battle, but right now it is a toss-up. They've both been here before. Brass leaves on Porter. Look at the truck settle at mid-range. The chassis, if there's such thing as a perfect chassis setting right now, it's with that truck. Whoa, the steering went away on it. Brass very wisely tags the brake to pull it around. But remember, in the first round, he lost the steering. I believe it happened to him again. He's driving right now with no steering, Gary Lee, none whatsoever.
And here's where he locks the brakes up and slides to a stop.
See, the wheels stay straight in the front. He did not turn those wheels.
Foot and Taurus.
We've been here twice already. The big difference is, I'll guarantee, if Taurus can leave with Bigfoot, he can beat him on the other end. That's going to be the trick. If that kid can stay cool and come out of the gate with Brass, he did it. He did it.
He wins it. He has it by a fender. Army, you called it. You're absolutely right on. He stayed with him. Brass may have had a slight hole shot right there, but otherwise the kid, Eldon Depew, stays with Andy Brass, and Taurus, the Chevrolet, knocks off the Ford Bigfoot.
Boy, that is amazing. The replay shows one goes over nose up, the other one goes over nose down, both times.
And the youngster from Granite City, Illinois, not far from St. Louis, takes the victory. He's the winner here at the Indiana State Fairgrounds. Let's talk to Eldon Depew, the champion this afternoon. So once again, the fast qualifier, there he is, the blue truck, Bigfoot 8 out of St. Louis, Missouri. The driver is Andy Brass. This is the two-frame. They all copy a winner. That's what they're going to now. And Andy goes up against Wayne Smozanik in Tropical Thunder. Wayne, a local boy from Jupiter, Florida, wanting to do well here before the local fans. His partner, Ted Holden, is in the grandstand, so he wants a good ride here this afternoon. He goes up against Andy Brass. And let's go down now to the pit area, some observations from Army Armstrong.
Hey, Gary, I just found something kind of interesting back here in the pit area. The Tropical Thunder crew, they just purchased a new set of axles and housings and steering assembly for the truck. They're trying to update their equipment. Where they got this equipment from was the Bigfoot team, but where it started life from, you kids get this, these are rear end assemblies out from underneath school buses, just like the one you took to school today.
Oh, Army, they didn't go to school today. This is the weekend. I tell you what, I love that jacket. You can't get lost in the crowd, can you?
Hey, they did go to Sunday school, Gary.
All right, Bigfoot goes up against Tropical Thunder.
A lot of pressure on this local kid. Not going to do it, Jerry. Andy Brass, the number 8 truck, looking awfully, awfully strong.
I think in that case it was just superior equipment in Bigfoot 8. You could see the torque coming off the line right here. Andy had the whole shot.
Well, just a moment ago, I was telling you about the new equipment that the Smozanik team's buying. Look at the way that the Bigfoot truck lands. It's landing soft. Smozanik old-style truck's not going to work.
Well, let's go down now and check in with Andy Brass.
Andy, tell me about the track out there this afternoon.
That track's a lot different from what we thought it was going to be. It's a real sandy track. All the guys thought we was just going to be breaking the tires loose on the line and spinning between the cars there, but it's real soft. There's a lot of water in the sand. It's biting real hard, so everybody's trying to come off the line a little easier, and the guys are starting to change a lot of gear ratios. We made our first run, and now we're going to go back and change the truck according.
Good enough. We'll see you in the next round.
All right, Army.
And just like other forms of motorsports, it's a case of reach. And here is John Moore. This is no problem. Now, John was the fast loser from round 1, so he gets to advance into round 2, and look who he draws. Bigfoot 8, Andy Brass.
Well, some days are diamonds and some days are stones. There's your gloves again, Gary.
Now, I like your red Simpson driving shoes and that wild jacket you had on earlier.
Well, one thing for sure, the Ford people are going to like this race.
Now, they can't lose in this one. Pickup truck against Bronco, but it's all pickup. Bigfoot 8,
Man,
Andy Brass.
I told you at the beginning of the show, you're going to see the monster truck Air Force. Andy Brass is a fighter pilot.
Well, we talk about superior equipment. We have to talk about a combination of chassis, this two-frame chassis, the race truck, plus the horsepower being developed by that big Ford
engine.
But
they got to work together. You got to remember that. You don't put the truck on the ground, the horsepower's not going to do you a bit of good in the middle of the air.
A good crowd on hand. They're appreciative, and certainly the weather has been so hospitable here in South Florida as we look at the semifinal matchups. Bigfoot against the Crusher and Taurus against King Crunch. He is the fast loser from round 2. And now let's go down and talk to Andy Brass.
Andy Brass, you're going against a guy you've run many times, Gary Porter. You got any type of thought on this run?
Well, we've just been watching the lights, been trying to play the light real close. You know, we're making a gear change over in the truck right now. We made a real good run. Our time's been running better than Gary's, but, you know, they've been doing a little work to the track, so things might shape up a little bit, and it's going to be a good close run. We're just going to have to push it hard.
Well, Andy Brass has won his share, but Gary Porter, now we will determine who he goes up against. Will it be Bigfoot 8, Andy Brass out of St. Louis, Missouri, or Gary Porter, the Carolina Crusher, Chevrolet against Ford?
The trick is not to get a lot of air on the first set of cars. That's what the Few's doing. He's actually driving over the first cars. Then he can use that horsepower with all 4 wheels on the ground between the jumps. So these guys have watched the rookie, the Few. They figured his groove, if you will. Let's see what they do.
So you're talking about self-discipline. As that light turns green, you nail the hammer, but don't nail it too hard.
There they go, both of them. Oh, that was a good
fender victory for Gary Porter's Carolina Crusher.
Wow, it's going to be an all Chevrolet final in Naples, Florida, and these people are pumped, Gary. Look at this.
Well, I think any time that someone like Andy Brass, that has won so many times, is defeated, the fans enjoy somebody else in victory lane. Today it will be somebody else, because right there the victory goes to Gary Porter, and here's Gary. Round 2, and there is a look at Andy Brass in Bigfoot 8.
Gary, this is a unique situation, because normally the area they're running on is under 3 or 4 feet of water. They've actually drained the pond to make this track, and these people are going to have a chance, like you said in the opening, to see some racing like they've never seen before. They're used to seeing them go through the water and go through the mud. It's going to be like a miniature Air Force here before the day's over, I believe.
There's Mike Votters out of Maryland. He has had a long tow to be with us here in Naples, Florida. So it's Ford against Ford. The Black Stallion in near lane, the far lane. Bigfoot 8th, the fast qualifier.
Well, Gary, they both may be forced, but there is a difference. The difference is in the suspension of the truck. New suspension far side.
Well, Andy Brass has no problem at all because there's a breakage in the Black Stallion. So Mike Votters with a mechanical problem. Andy Brass, the fast qualifier, was not even tested there. As we take a look again, you mentioned the suspension. It allows the truck to settle down. He gets back on the power. He has the horsepower. He takes the victory. Now some comments from Andy Brass.
Andy, first guy on the new track, what's it feel like out there?
Well, the track's a little different. You know, we kind of looking at when we come out. They put in a bunch of new cars and stuff. You know, it's packed between the cars. It seems like we're getting a little bit better traction. It don't feel that bad, but I tried to miss all the cars down at the end because I didn't want to take a chance of catching the last car and maybe flipping me up in the air.
Well, Andy Brass has the horsepower to do exactly that. And also Bigfoot. It's a pickup truck against the Ford Bronco. John Moore and Andy Brass.
You were talking about this facility and the drivers like it. This is a complete racing facility. A lot of people aren't aware of it, but I mean, they're serious about their motor.
Just off to the left is a go-kart track. I had a chance to take a ride in a couple of go-karts earlier. That was a lot of fun as Andy Brass has a little fun on that run. Wins over John Moore. I tell you what, it is just difficult on any surface at any facility to beat Andy Brass and that Bigfoot truck.
He's kind of like a fighter pilot. There's something in the seat of that guy's britches that lets him feel how to handle that truck.
In motorsports, we call it a package. He has the vehicle, the horsepower, the suspension, and of course the driver has the ability. The package wins the race. Andy Brass victorious. He is standing by now with Army Armstrong.
Andy, there seems to be a lot of controversy. Well, really, it's turmoil back in the pit area. What seems to be the problem?
We're having a lot of controversy and problems today. Our timing lights we don't think are operating right. And then again, here a while ago on the line, we was also in the pits. We watched Taurus move on the line. The ruling on that is once you're set and stage, you're not supposed to move or you're DQ'd for the day. Here they didn't catch it. The guy on the starting line caught it. They don't seem to catch it at the playback video, but the guys in the pits that are watching on their video, they've caught it. A few of us have caught it, and we've said something, but nothing seems to be taking place of it. And with the money and stuff that's involved here, you know, this makes it important for the guys to be catching this stuff, because if it's not caught, then it's the other guys lose out, or it can affect the things later on down in the lineup.
So a disconcerted Andy Brass. He's victorious, but now here's what he refers to. Now watch Eldon Depew move right there. Trucks here in the south of Florida, and here's a look at Bigfoot, and they're staging Eldon Depew in the Chevrolet Taurus. Now let's watch his starting technique and see if it happens again, Army.
He talks about getting the truck up on the brake. That's the same thing as putting your foot on the brake and your foot on the gas and tightening it up. There he did.
I see he jumps again. Now, you're saying by the rule book that should be a disqualification. Well, it doesn't really matter because Bigfoot with Andy Brass is the winner of the semifinal round. But once again, the other drivers are saying he should have been disqualified earlier.
Okay, what I'm saying is the rule, like I say, all I'm going to do is give you the rule book. You make the decision. The rule book says once you're set, you don't move till the light goes green. He moved.
Well, I would think that would be a disadvantage because he comes out of the throttle after he burps it. About the time the light changes, Brass is in the throttle. He's out of the throttle.
He did that time. They're saying he didn't do it the other time.
Well, let's watch again. Now watch again.
We're going to key on him. If the truck moves at all, he should be disqualified. Enough said. Okay, Gary, he did go up on a brake, but Andy Brass went up on the other end.
And Andy Brass will be going to the championship round here in Naples, and let's visit with Andy now.
Andy, your win over Taurus seems to have been a very popular one. These people are really just jumping and shouting for you here today.
That's right. You know, I knew when we come up the line against Eldon, he's been running good. We've been watching his times all day, so we knew he was going to make a good run. We just got to push the truck hard. We pushed it a little bit. I checked my times. We come up with a lot slower time than what I wanted. So we're over there checking the truck out, and we're thinking maybe something went wrong.
Oh, when this one's all over, all the people that came to Florida Sports Park are going to be able to say they saw one of the finest monster truck races in the country. It's going to be the final. It's coming out next. These two guys have been players all year long. They know each other's habits. They know what they're going to do. Gary Porter says he's going to be in the lane he wants to be in, the right lane. Andy Brass is going to be in the lane he wants to be in, the left lane. No excuses, but there is a story, and the story is the starting line, the launch pad, if you will, starting to dig down about 3 or 4 inches, and I predict that the one that gets to leave first will win this one today. Starting line is where this race is going to be won, Gary.
All right, we'll call that the whole shot. We'll see how prophetic you are, Army Armstrong, as we are ready, the fans are ready, the drivers are getting in position.
Gary, exactly what I'm talking about. Gary Porter goes out and starts to roll the starting line. Brass is doing it in the other lane. There's a little indentation. They're trying to pack their starting line in. They just got to make it hold for one time. Like we were saying earlier, all they need is just a little more power now.
What more could you ask for? It's Ford against Chevrolet. Bigfoot, Andy Brass, the Carolina Crusher, and Gary Porter. Andy Brass has been the guy to beat for the past several seasons, but Gary Porter has really come on as of late. If there were a most improved driver award, I think it would go to Gary Porter.
It would have to. I agree.
Yeah, he's
and
putting
the other
his act
drivers
together.
will tell you that.
All right, here it is. Looking at him. Right lane. Now the far lane is Andy Brass, the near lane. Well, a problem. It was a hole shot, but there's a problem with Andy Brass. It was all Gary Porter. The fans showed their delight. Chevrolet takes the victory here, and look at Andy Brass. Well, he's going to cross the finish line at about 10 or 15 miles an hour.
Yeah,
the fans seem to enjoy the victory by the Chevrolet.
The important thing is he is going to cross the finish line, and you know, he got beat, but he's not going to roll over right here. He'll finish the race for the fans. Chevrolet, they take this one today, but the circuit goes on.
Well, Gary Porter is your winner here, and he walks down to talk to our Army Armstrong. Look at the Black Stallion, another Ford product. And this is Mike Botters. Mike comes in from the East Coast out of Maryland, a long haul from the East Coast to the Hoosier Dome for the Black Stallion. And look at this, mechanical problems in qualifying. They have Bigfoot Andy Brass listed as the 12th fastest qualifier.
Mike was tickled to death with his qualifying spot. He thinks I got to run the slowest guy in the field. But what happens? Andy Brass has a problem with Bigfoot. He comes in as slow.
He won't be slow now.
Brass has got it covered big.
Easy victory for Andy Brass. This is a 12-truck format here in the Hoosier Dome. Andy Brass, the 12th fastest qualifier. Very uncharacteristic for Bob Chandler and his crew out of St. Louis. But whatever the problem was earlier, they have it rectified. A big victory here for Andy Brass.
The first jump is 2 cars. Look at the last jump. Completely clears all of them. I mean, clears them, Gary.
That's that tube frame. Bigfoot 8 for Andy Brass. He advances, and look at this.
Next round, but who else is going to roll over? We're going to find out right now. This is worth the price of admission. Chevrolet fans are going to be pulling for Taurus. On the other side, the big blue truck. Andy Brass will be driving Bob Chandler's creation. But right now, Jack Wilman Sr., the creator of the Taurus team, he's the man on the spot. He's watching his nephew do the driving. Eldon Depew, Andy Brass, Chevrolet, and Ford, Gary.
Well, these guys are neighbors, separated by the river over there. Andy Brass out of St. Louis, Eldon Depew out of Granite City, Illinois, and it looks like Eldon Depew taking the victory over Bigfoot. Watch again, Army.
Why, Eldon Depew literally, look how low he stays to the ground. Stays there.
That's where he wanted it, right there in
exactly.
no man's land. The truck did not jump. It came off that first set of cars in a smooth fashion. He kept it low to the ground, and that's where he was able to apply the horsepower. He takes the victory. There's a good look.